Welcome to the Dumpster Dive. I'm your host, Digby the Cat. Because the WF haven't found me yet, and today I'm going to make it their problem. Starting with our main story of the week is the Iran War. Because it's everyone's main story. It's the only story. General highlights. The Iranians are now confirmed, well, all but confirmed, to be laying minefields. These minefields obviously are going to cause a lot of problems because if there's any potential minefield in the strait, nobody's going to go through it. Unfortunately, the Americans don't have much of a mine clearing fleet, as they just retired their main mine clearing vessels, but they are moving a couple of mine clearers that they do have into the region. Reportedly, some vessels have been transiting the strait, reportedly with the cooperation of the Iranian state or elements thereof, and their routes have taken them very, very close to the Iranian coastline, suggesting that these vessels are avoiding minefields that are in the more mainstream shipping routes. Basic idea, it seems, is if you want to get through, you gotta do so under the watchful eye of the Iranians. In other news, the U.S. aircraft carrier, the Gerald Ford, reportedly had a fire on it last week. A fire that burned for 30 hours straight and reportedly started in the ship's laundromat. 600 sailors have lost their bunks, meaning crew quarters were also damaged, to the extent that they can't use them anymore. These crewmen are now bunking down wherever they can, whether that be in corridors or tables, any rooms that are spare or are unessential right now. Reportedly, 2, perhaps 3 sailors received treatment for non-life threatening injuries, though many more will have been affected by smoke inhalation. It's a little surprising that something like this would happen on a US carrier. The US Navy has had to contend with serious fires in ship laundromats before, and reportedly they are quite on point now with fire suppression systems in these high-risk areas. Yes, a laundromat is a high-risk area for fire. Lots of things that can catch fire, lots of things that can burn. Reportedly, according to some, though these reports are not confirmed, the Gerald Ford is equipped with a halon gas fire suppression system in its laundromat. Why it didn't work is anyone's guess. Either it simply failed, the reports are incorrect, or potentially sabotage, or an attack by an Iranian drone or missile that actually impacted the Ford. Obviously, we don't know for sure what happened, and we likely won't for years, if ever, as the USA obviously has reason to lie about any potential cause if it's something that looks bad for them. We won't have any real meaningful picture until the Gerald Ford transits to a port where there are plenty of observers. Reportedly, it is swapping out of the operating theater and making its way to Crete, to be replaced by the George H.W. Bush. Overall, this is probably a wise move either way, as the Ford has been at sea for almost a year. Almost a year? It's been at sea for quite a while, long past the typical 6-month point. And it has gone from the Caribbean to the Middle East in that time. So it's been out at sea for quite a while. So it's highly likely at this point that the crew is fatigued, the vessel needs work, and I imagine more than a few of their stockpiles have been depleted. So replacing them with a fresh carrier that's fully loaded to the gills is probably a good option. At the same time, the Israelis are reportedly looking to mobilize 450,000 reservists for a ground conflict in Lebanon. That's quite a lot of people. That's quite a lot of people. It's quite surprising that the Israelis would make this kind of move, but they do have territorial claims in Lebanon that they've been agitating for quite a while, and they of course have long-standing Iranian allies in the region that they would like to see gone. So it's not surprising that the Israelis are trying to make this move when they can. On top of that, the USA is also allowing Iranian oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. This is a very surprising move, as the typical US response to Iranian oil tankers in the past has been, yo ho ho, a pirate's life for me. So the fact that not only are they going to not attack them, but they're going to just ignore them is a surprising move. Taken purely on the basis that the USA is looking to try and get oil prices down to prevent global shocks, as I imagine more than a few American business moguls have been pestering the US government over this matter, and more than a few other nations have been saying, hey, this is causing problems for us. Stop fucking around. Obviously, this will mainly affect nations like India and China, who are the primary buyers of Iranian oil. But this is good because it will mean that these countries will not be looking to buy more on global markets, driving up prices. So, as it stands, most tankers are still trapped. Some have been able to make their way, but not in large enough quantities to have a meaningful effect on global oil prices. We also have some interesting news out of Iraq. It was close enough. One letter off. Of a FPV drone flying around Victory Base near Baghdad International Airport, operated by the US military. This drone was reportedly being flown by a Iraqi militia that supports Iran, and it flew around the base basically unmolested for a couple of minutes before slamming into the side of a building. And this was reportedly an fiber optic FPV drone, meaning you can't simply jam it, you need to either intercept it or use something that will destroy the electronics. It's quite surprising to see one of these at work in use in the Middle East, as these have been a big fixture of the Ukrainian war, so it's quite a surprise. Likely either they've been paying attention to what's going on in Ukraine, or somebody involved in that conflict has been feeding information and ideas to these people. And possibly also equipment. Obviously, we don't know the overall providence, but it's an unwelcome development, I imagine, for many. Obviously, in this video, which comes complete with music, very dramatic. We don't see anyone running around, likely because there had been an alert sounded, and everyone went into hiding in bunkers or buildings. Standard procedure in the event of an attack. And if we look down here, we will find that you can buy DJI official grenade attachments off of AliExpress. Well, I imagine some are official, some are not. Literally, you can buy the parts to make a military grade drone, FPV drone, off of AliExpress now. Oh, fantastic. That's the world we're in now. That's the world we're in, everyone. I mean, I'm not surprised. But it's unpleasant. Unfortunately, as well, it seems that whilst Iranian... Let's turn that down. Unfortunately, it seems that while Iranian drone strike numbers are decreasing, their efficacy is going up. Likely a consequence of the radar installations and intercept capabilities that were destroyed in the last 2 weeks of the war. So we're now seeing more hits. How effective those hits are is still, as ever, debatable, but they are happening, and that is a problem. Reportedly in Dubai, they are making it a criminal offense to share information about attacks, which is unsurprising for a Gulf state like that, but it's still kind of sad because it makes things a little more difficult for us to find out what's going on. Reportedly, Dubai-based influencers are putting out videos saying that there's no war, or they're not worried about the war because they know who's protecting them, along with, funk edits of the Dubai royalty just like trying to look badass as they walk across a tarmac or something. Yes, there have been numerous attacks on the U.S. embassies in, well, the U.S. embassy in Baghdad. Not exactly good. And Donald Trump, El Presidente himself, has been saying he's not terribly happy that NATO has refused to get involved. Obviously, NATO allies are not obligated to get involved because it is outside of the area covered by the treaty. But in the past, they have gotten involved in the USA's conflicts in the Middle East. But he is especially unhappy that they're not getting involved this time, especially after he initially said they don't need them. Then he asked for their help, then they said no, and now he's like, well, fine, we don't need you. It's not a good look. It's not a good look because his language has generally been very confrontational, very demanding, and it's not surprising overall that the EU would not respond very kindly to that. Overall, the state of the conflict right now seems to be that it has entered a sort of stalemate period. The Iranians have lost most of their harder military assets. Their surface fleet, their air force is gone for the most part. There's not really much left in terms of conventional military might in Iran. However, it seems that despite spending a considerable amount of money on elements of their conventional military forces, it doesn't seem like that was their main plan. Instead, they seem to have learned the lesson of the USA's other conflicts and have focused on distributed asymmetrical warfare. And whilst it's debatable how effective that's going to be for them, it's causing problems. It's causing problems. The main one is right now the Strait of Hormuz. They don't need a conventional navy to blockade it. They don't need a conventional navy to shut it down. All they need is a bunch of speedboats, some sea mines, or some basic drones or missiles. If they've got those, they can shut it. And as we can see, these little pink icons here indicate boats that have been hit. The number has increased considerably since last week. The number has increased quite a lot since last week. And we're seeing things like drone strikes, merchant vessel struck, merchant vessel struck. Oh yeah, that one's from last week. And they're even getting all the way over here. Closer to, well, past Dubai, near Abu Dhabi. With attempts, even strikes on things like French naval bases in Abu Dhabi. The Al Dhafra Air Base. Reportedly, an Italian service member, I think it was killed in one of these strikes. We also have one over here. So these guys got through the strait, and they probably thought they were home free, and then, boom, they got hit. So, you know, even if you get all the way out here, you're not safe. You're not safe. What's this one? Oh, this is the Iranian warship, yeah. This is the Iranian warship. So, for those who don't know about this, the Iranians were present at a naval exercise being held by the Indians alongside an American naval ship. And the Americans sank the ship on its way back to Iran. So, that's kind of... I mean, I'd call it a dick move, personally, but no, it's understandable. It's a very understandable. There was also a crash involving two air-to-air refueling tankers. A KC-135. Reportedly lost with all hands. Nobody... I've not heard anything about the crew being recovered. With a crew of reportedly 6 people on board. Unfortunate. And it doesn't seem to have been down to enemy action, as the other aircraft came with a good chunk of its rear tail fin sheared off, implying a collision rather than enemy action. As if it had been enemy action, it likely would have been shredded rather than sheared. But yeah, that's the situation in Iran. We're entering a sort of stalemate period, and it's just a question of who has the greater staying power. Can the Americans tolerate the economic issues and the political issues? long enough. Actually, there is one element more that needs to be considered here. Can't believe I almost forgot it. The Americans are reportedly deploying a large detachment of Marines to the Middle East aboard one of their little strike carriers. Approximately, I think it was something like 3,500 Marines are on board the vessel, and it is making all speed from the Far East to the Middle East. It should be there soon, if it's not already. That is a fairly substantial force, which, in conjunction with the paratroop force in the USA that was taken off of exercise recently, whoops, that is an indicator that the Americans are planning a assault. With this place, I think it was this place, being one of the yeah, I think it was this. One of Iran's big oil-producing islands being the main suspected target. Obviously, if the Americans do seek to take it and hold it, that's going to mean American boots on the ground, which would be a notable escalation in the conflict. It's debatable how well that will go, but every expectation is that it will probably be a military victory for the Americans. Whether or not they can turn that into a strategic victory is an entirely different matter. So, yes. That's the state of that conflict. Oh. It's not looking good for either side at the moment. We'll have to see who wins out in the end. In other news, the EU has slapped Microsoft with a lot of regulatory pushback over things like the Microsoft Store, the Edge browser integration, and other invasive features. This has resulted in Microsoft agreeing to allow users in the EU, and only the EU, plus Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway, to uninstall the Edge browser, uninstall the Microsoft Store, set the default browser to whatever they want, and integrate third-party search, such as DuckDuckGo or Google. Obviously, this is quite the big victory for consumers in the EU, as it gives them more choice and limits the amount of obtrusive bullshit from Microsoft, such as Bing search in their taskbar, AI features, so on and so forth. They can just uninstall things, and Microsoft can't say no, and it can't sneakily reinstall them. As has often been a problem with a previous Windows debloat methodologies, Microsoft finds a way around it. Microsoft reinstalls everything, and you're back to square one. So, yeah, this is good for EU consumers. This is good for EU consumers. You love to see it. You love to see it. Obviously, Microsoft isn't happy, but fuck them. Moving on to the RAM-pocalypse. The RAM-pocalypse, as we all know, is quite horrifying. For those of you who aren't familiar with the RAM-pocalypse, basically, thanks to the AI data centers needing a lot of what's called random access memory, they are buying up the global supply of RAM. Oh shit, was I streaming this? Shit, I was streaming this. I was supposed to be recording this. I was supposed to be recording this. I just saw the hand. I was like, oh, wait, what? Wait, what? Wait, what? Oh, dear. Well, that was silly of me. That was silly of me. Oh, well. Oh, well, we continue rolling forward, but now with more chat interaction. It just goes to show that nothing with Digby is ever entirely without scuff. Nothing about Digby is ever entirely without scuff. Oh dear. Oh dear. I suppose in future we might do it with more more audience participation. But anyways, back to what I was saying. Back to the story. Back to the story. So the RAM situation is very bad. AI applications are very RAM hungry, and this has affected everything else that involves a computer. Your computer has RAM in it, your phone has RAM in it, your car, your washing machine, your fridge probably has RAM in it these days. Such is life. Any computer needs RAM. And unfortunately, the lead time on making more, expanding supply, production, is very long, up to a year. Well, sorry, up to a year just to get a new factory producing, and years to build it. And it's a very, very capital intensive layout. It's like billions just to build a single factory. The industry has long had an issue with gluts and droughts, with periods where they can't produce enough and periods where they're producing too much. With the AI bubble, obviously, they have been reluctant to expand production. They've been there before, they don't want to be there again. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to matter if they are going to expand production, as recently, the Iran war, we're swinging back to that a little, the Qatari helium production has stopped. 30% of global helium supply, essential for the industrial processes used in the production of RAM, has, so the AI has truly been a disaster, and now it doesn't matter because 30% of global supply of a essential resource in its production is gone. And there are no viable alternatives to helium in this step of the process. This was in response to damage on the Qatar energy facility, Ras Laffan, which is one of the largest producers, like I said, 30% of global supply, being struck by drones. So we don't know how long it'll take to bring it back online, or if they even can. It's not good. It's not good. Reportedly, the majority of the problem here is going to be felt by South Korean manufacturers, with SK Hynix. Was it SK Hynix? Yes. South Korean memory giant SK Hynix saying that they have diversified supplies. TSMC said that it doesn't currently anticipate a notable impact, but it is important to remember that these companies will be looking to reassure their business partners that they can still meet demands. So the RAM situation is going to get worse. And we're already seeing prices skyrocket on RAM. So that's not good. To give you an idea of how bad the RAM situation has been, you can buy RAM kits that have fake RAM in them. Now, these are aimed at people using RGB kits on their RAM, but it is kind of stupid. You can buy a 24 GB stick of RAM and basically an RGB insert, which looks like your RAM, but isn't actually RAM. If you told me that something like this would exist 5 years ago, I'd have said, what the fuck kind of stupid shit is that? It's aimed at people who are doing, obviously, the LED, RGB stuff, but it's still very stupid. To give an idea of how bad the RAM situation has gotten, Samsung Mobile, the manufacturer of Samsung mobile phones, is in emergency management mode apparently, with facing prospects of making a loss for the first time in a very long time. Reportedly last year, Samsung Mobile approached Samsung Memory and said, "Hey guys, this is how much memory we're going to need next year." And Samsung Memory said, "Ha ha ha, fuck off." Reportedly wanting to prioritize far more profitable AI data center applications rather than selling at just above cost to another part of the company. Many people would say that this seems a little odd, but no, this is an unsurprising thing in many ways because Samsung's internal divisions are relatively autonomous. So this is not surprising. This is not surprising. It's a big problem though. Obviously, if Samsung Mobile makes a loss, it could see Samsung overall looking to either shrink the company or even shut it down entirely. It depends on how bad they think it could get. which would further decrease the number of players in the mobile phone space. But that's where life is right now. Obviously, you have also Micron and SanDisk stocks all soaring. If you're a memory manufacturer, your stocks are soaring. So real winners are those who are already invested in memory manufacturing. Obviously, this won't last. This will not last. But if it does last for more than a few years, you could stand to make a pretty penny off of it. But obviously, there will eventually come a point where the AI bubble pops or demand stabilizes at a lower level, and there is a very real risk of there being at that point oversupply, as there are numerous new facilities being built to provide current generation RAM products. AI one-shotted the boomers, as they say. Indeed. However, there are slight potential benefits to the RAM apocalypse. Game developers, who have been notorious for many years for refusing to properly optimize their games, are now looking at the situation and going, we can't rely on ever-increasing quantities of RAM and higher specifications on personal computers, so we might have to actually learn how to optimize our games again. Every cloud has a silver lining. I strongly suspect that the entire RAM apocalypse is because some idiot got their hands on a monkey's paw and said, I wish game devs would optimize their fucking games. That's a real monkey's paw of a wish, isn't it? But if that benefit does come along, it would be nice. It would be nice. Moving away from the RAM apocalypse and to age verification again. Don't we love ourselves some age verification? We love age verification. No, we don't. Age verification is stupid. Spain's data protection regulator has fined one of the EU's preferred companies for age verification, Yoti, $1.1 million or 950,000 euros because they handled the data incorrectly. Basically, they held on to data when they shouldn't, and there were a lot of questions about how they were using said data. To put it bluntly, it's dumb. It's all a very dumb case. Basically, the Yoti were supposed to be deleting the data immediately after its use. However, they also provided the ability to recover accounts. But obviously, that required them to hold on to data. It's all a little silly. It's all a bit going in circles, but it does show many of the difficulties with these services. In this case, we are very lucky that it wasn't a case of a outside attacker gaining access to Yoti's database. So, there is that at least. There is that at least. But as we all know, there is no such thing as a secure system online, and they will inevitably be very, very popular targets. Very popular targets. And there's just really no way of getting around that. Obviously, it's a delicate balancing act. As the EU has put it, they want to try and implement a user-friendly and privacy-preserving age verification method, but these two goals are fundamentally opposed. These two goals are fundamentally opposed. There's no getting around that. There's no getting around that, unfortunately. The EU is currently trying to harmonize approaches across the bloc. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, but the fundamental goal likely is not to protect the children, as they say, but is instead to track people. Obviously, if you say something mean about the French government online in France, then they will be able to track you down and throw you in the gulag. Macron did declare he would rule as Jupiter, so, don't be surprised when Jupiter throws you in the prison cell. Obviously, the EU is a slow, bureaucratic machine, and they are pushing their European digital identity wallets, and they are pushing them to be implemented by the end of 2026, this year. Obviously, that is unlikely to happen. That is unlikely to happen, but it's clear they have a goal. They are pushing it as an open source implementation, though, which is a little surprising. It is a little surprising, but so it can be customized by the various users. Obviously, the EU, unlike the USA, which is starting to flirt with operating system based age verification, the EU is still aiming at online platforms. Obviously, this means that the EU has to cover a lot more bases, whereas the USA only needs to cover basically a handful. Now, such laws in the USA are being done on a state-by-state basis, but there are no doubt going to be attempts to push this on the federal level. In Europe, it's going to be a bit more of a mess, and they are still heavily leaning on private companies to provide the bulk of the actual work. In that your identity is not being verified by your government, it is being verified by a third-party company, and that third-party company needs to make as much profit as it possibly can, and it is going to be sat on a lot of data. And that data is very valuable, meaning they will almost certainly sell it. Whether legally or not, they will sell it. But yeah, that's the state of the EU. Your digital identity wallet is coming. It is supposedly coming at the end of this year. Digital papers, please. Digital papers, please. They say it's about safety. But it's just about control. It's about tracking people. It's about ending anonymity online. You will not be able to hide behind by fake names. You will be revealed for who you truly are, which obviously will kill a lot of discussion online. Anonymity is a essential property to the internet, in my view. Without it, it simply doesn't work. But yes, that has been the dumpster dive for the 17th of the 3rd, 2026. That was the last story I was wanting to cover. We will end on a lovely little statement from Donald Trump. We'll end on a lovely little statement from Donald Trump.
Predicted all of it. I predicted Osama bin Laden would knock out the World
Wait, why isn't it not playing?
Trade Center. I made that prediction a year before he did it. I said, you better get him. He's a bad guy. I watched him be interviewed one time, and I said, that's a bad guy. You better get him. 1 year before, exactly. I wrote it in a book. You can even check. About a year before the World Trade Center then came down, President Clinton actually had a shot at him, and he didn't take it, unfortunately. I'm not blaming him for that, but he didn't take it. And he ended up knocking down the World Trade Center, but I predicted that too. I predicted a lot of things. We strongly predicted all of
it. Apparently, Trump predicted 9/11 and wrote it in a book. He will never be Alex Jones. I'm sorry, Mr. Trump. You will never be Alex Jones. You will never be Alex Jones. Yes, that has been the dumpster dive, and I have been your host, Digby the Cat. Until next time, keep your head on a swivel. The world is a crazy place. The world has become a crazy place. We are, as the Chinese curse says, doomed to live in interesting times. This will be added onto the YouTube channel. This was not meant to be streamed, but oh well, accidents happen. Reflexes kick in every now and then. Until next time, again, stay safe, drink water, and keep your head down, because things are going to only get more interesting. And if you're buying a computer, the best time is now, because tomorrow it's going to be costing you more. Good night, everyone.